Question 1. Which approach would be most appropriate for a driver in Tasmania experiencing significant fatigue while driving on a rural road, considering the need to maintain road safety and comply with Tasmanian road rules? Option A. Immediately pull over to a safe location, such as a designated rest area or a well-lit off-road spot to rest until feeling alert. Option B. Drive to the nearest town to seek medical advice for the fatigue. Option C. Pull over to the side of the road immediately, even if it is a narrow shoulder or potentially obstructs traffic, to close eyes for a few minutes. Option D. Continue driving for another hour, hoping the fatigue will pass, as stopping might cause delays. The correct answer is A. Immediately pull over to a safe location, such as a designated rest area or a well-lit, off-road spot, to rest until feeling alert. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a driver to make a critical decision under pressure, balancing immediate personal needs with the paramount importance of road safety and adherence to Tasmanian road rules. The driver's fatigue directly impacts their ability to operate a vehicle safely, posing a significant risk to themselves and others. Careful judgment is required to prioritize safety over convenience or perceived urgency. The best approach involves immediately ceasing driving and finding a safe place to rest. This aligns directly with the fundamental principles of road safety legislation in Tasmania, which places a strong emphasis on drivers being fit and capable to drive. Specifically, the Road Safety, Traffic and Regulators Act 2011, TAS, and associated regulations implicitly and explicitly require drivers to be in a condition to drive safely. Fatigue is a recognized impairment, akin to intoxication, and continuing to drive while fatigued is a breach of the duty of care owed to other road users. This approach prioritizes the prevention of accidents and upholds the legal and ethical obligation to drive responsibly. Continuing to drive despite feeling fatigued is a failure to comply with the spirit and intent of Tasmanian road safety laws. It demonstrates a disregard for the potential consequences of impaired driving and prioritizes personal convenience over public safety. This approach is ethically unsound as it knowingly exposes others to risk. Pulling over to the side of the road without finding a designated rest area or safe stopping point, especially if it obstructs traffic or creates a hazard, is also a failure. While stopping is a step towards addressing fatigue, doing so in an unsafe manner can create new dangers, contravening regulations related to obstructing traffic or parking in dangerous locations. Seeking immediate medical attention for fatigue, while potentially a good long-term strategy, is not the most direct or appropriate immediate response to the need to stop driving. The primary concern is to remove the immediate risk posed by driving while fatigued, which can be achieved through rest. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and legal compliance. This involves recognizing signs of impairment, like fatigue, understanding the immediate risks associated with continuing the activity, and taking decisive action to mitigate those risks in accordance with relevant laws and ethical guidelines. In this case, the framework dictates that personal well-being, in terms of fitness to drive, must be assessed and addressed before continuing to operate a vehicle. Question 2. Benchmark analysis indicates that when approaching an intersection in Tasmania where there are no traffic lights, signs, or police directing traffic, and multiple vehicles are present, what is the most appropriate and legally compliant method for a driver to determine who should proceed first? Option A. Prioritize personal urgency and proceed if there is a perceived gap, assuming other drivers will yield. Option B. Attempt to make eye contact with other drivers to gauge their intentions before proceeding. Option C. Proceed based on an assumption that the driver who appears to be moving faster or arrived at the intersection first has the right of way. Option D. Strictly apply the Tasmanian road rules regarding giving way to vehicles already in the intersection or on the right, ensuring predictable and safe passage. Correct answer is D. Strictly apply the Tasmanian road rules regarding giving way to vehicles already in the intersection or on the right, ensuring predictable and safe passage. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a driver to interpret and apply road rules in a dynamic and potentially hazardous situation. The driver must balance their immediate need to proceed with the overarching responsibility to ensure the safety of themselves, other road users, and pedestrians. Misinterpreting the road rules or acting impulsively can lead to dangerous situations, fines, demerit points, or even accidents, highlighting the critical need for careful judgment and adherence to the Tasmanian road rules. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves a thorough understanding and strict adherence to the Tasmanian road rules, specifically those pertaining to intersections and giving way. This approach prioritizes safety by ensuring the driver correctly identifies their obligation to give way to vehicles already in the intersection or those on their right if no other rule applies. This aligns with the fundamental principle of road safety in Tasmania, which emphasizes predictable behavior and clear right-of-way to prevent collisions. The Road Rules Tasmania explicitly detail these obligations, and a driver's duty is to apply them diligently. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that prioritizes speed and assumes other drivers will yield is professionally unacceptable. This fails to comply with the Tasmanian road rules, which mandate specific giving way requirements at intersections. Such an approach disregards the safety of other road users and creates a high risk of collision. Another incorrect approach is to proceed based solely on the driver's personal assessment of who appears to be moving faster or who arrived first, without a clear understanding of the established giving way rules. This introduces subjectivity and unpredictability into a situation that requires objective adherence to regulations. The Tasmanian road rules provide a clear, objective framework for determining right-of-way, and deviating from this framework is a significant regulatory failure. Finally, an approach that involves making eye contact with another driver to gauge their intention, rather than relying on the established rules, is also professionally flawed. While communication can sometimes be helpful, it is not a substitute for understanding and applying the legal requirements for giving way. Relying on such informal cues can lead to misinterpretations and dangerous situations, as the other driver may also be misinterpreting the situation or acting in a way that is contrary to the rules. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the relevant regulations. In this case, it means recalling and applying the specific Tasmanian road rules for intersections. The driver should then assess the situation against these rules, identifying all potential conflicts and determining their obligation to give way. If there is any doubt, the safest course of action is to err on the side of caution and give way. This systematic approach ensures compliance, prioritizes safety, and reflects professional responsibility on the road. Question 3. Strategic planning requires a licensing officer in Tasmania to assess an applicant for a learner's permit. The applicant presents a birth certificate and a utility bill, but states they have recently moved to Tasmania and do not have a Tasmanian driver's license or a Tasmanian proof of address document beyond the utility bill. What is the most appropriate course of action for the licensing officer to ensure compliance with Tasmanian licensing regulations? Option A. Accept the utility bill as sufficient proof of address, assuming the applicant's statement of recent relocation is accurate. Option B. Issue the learner's permit based on the birth certificate and utility bill, advising the applicant to update their address details once they have established more permanent residency. Option C. Inform the applicant that they cannot proceed without a pre-existing Tasmanian driver's license or a more established history of residency in Tasmania, even if other documents are provided. Option D. Request additional documentation that specifically proves Tasmanian residency, such as a lease agreement or a bank statement with a Tasmanian address, and explain the specific requirements for proof of residency under Tasmanian law. The correct answer is D. Request additional documentation that specifically proves Tasmanian residency, such as a lease agreement or a bank statement with a Tasmanian address, and explain the specific requirements for proof of residency under Tasmanian law. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for a driver's license with the legal and safety requirements mandated by Tasmanian law. A licensing officer must exercise careful judgment to ensure all conditions are met, preventing unqualified individuals from operating vehicles on public roads, thereby safeguarding the community. The pressure to process applications efficiently must not compromise the integrity of the licensing process. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves a thorough verification of all submitted documentation against the requirements outlined in the Tasmanian Road Rules and the relevant sections of the Vehicle and Traffic Act 1998, Tasmania. This approach ensures that the applicant meets all legal prerequisites for obtaining a learner's permit, including age, residency, and identity verification, as stipulated by the Department of State Growth. Adhering strictly to these regulations is paramount for public safety and legal compliance. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves accepting the applicant's verbal assurance of residency without requiring proof. This fails to comply with the documented procedures for establishing residency, which are in place to prevent fraudulent application and ensure that licenses are issued to individuals who are genuinely subject to Tasmanian laws and regulations. This bypasses a critical verification step mandated by the licensing authority. Another incorrect approach is to overlook the requirement for a specific type of identification if the applicant presents a document that is not explicitly listed as acceptable. While the presented document might seem legitimate, it does not meet the defined standards for identity verification under Tasmanian law, potentially leading to the issuance of a license to an unqualified individual. A further incorrect approach is to expedite the process by assuming the applicant will provide the missing documentation later. This directly contravenes the principle of issuing a license only upon full compliance with all prerequisites. It creates a risk of an unlicensed individual driving on public roads and undermines the authority and procedural integrity of the licensing body. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this role should employ a systematic checklist approach, ensuring each requirement of the Tasmanian licensing framework is met before proceeding. They must prioritize adherence to the law and public safety over expediency. If any doubt or missing information exists, the correct professional action is to clearly communicate the deficiency to the applicant and explain the necessary steps to rectify it, rather than making assumptions or exceptions. Question 4. Strategic planning requires a driver in Tasmania to consider various scenarios when deciding where to stop. If a driver needs to allow a passenger to exit the vehicle quickly in a busy urban area, what is the most appropriate and legally compliant action to take? Option A. Park in a nearby no-stopping zone for a very short duration. Option B. Stop briefly in the traffic lane to allow the passenger to exit immediately. Option C. Find a designated parking space or a safe location where stopping is permitted and does not obstruct traffic. Option D. Stop on a pedestrian crossing to let the passenger out quickly. The correct answer is C. Find a designated parking space or a safe location where stopping is permitted and does not obstruct traffic. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to balance immediate personal needs with the overarching legal and safety obligations of operating a vehicle in Tasmania. The temptation to prioritize convenience or perceived urgency over established road rules can lead to dangerous situations and legal repercussions. Careful judgment is required to assess the risk associated with deviating from standard procedures and to understand the potential consequences for oneself and others. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves strictly adhering to the Tasmanian road rules regarding stopping and parking. This means finding a designated parking spot or a safe location where stopping is permitted and does not obstruct traffic or pose a hazard. This approach is correct because it directly aligns with Section 40 of the Road Rules 2019, Tasmania, which mandates that a driver must not stop on a road in a way that obstructs the free passage of other vehicles. Furthermore, it upholds the ethical responsibility of all road users to prioritize safety and predictability, ensuring the smooth and secure flow of traffic for everyone. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves stopping briefly in a traffic lane to allow a passenger to exit. This is a direct violation of Section 40 of the Road Rules 2019, Tasmania, and creates an immediate hazard by obstructing other vehicles, potentially leading to collisions. Demonstrates a failure to prioritize public safety over personal convenience. Another incorrect approach is to park in a no-stopping zone, even if it's only for a short period. This contravenes specific signage and regulations designed to maintain traffic flow and safety in particular areas, such as intersections or busy thoroughfares. It shows a disregard for explicit traffic management directives. A third incorrect approach is to stop on a pedestrian crossing. This is a serious breach of road safety regulations, as it endangers pedestrians who have the right of way and obstructs their safe passage. It violates Section 160 of the Road Rules 2019, Tasmania, which prohibits stopping on a pedestrian crossing. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and compliance. This involves 1. Understanding and internalizing all relevant Tasmanian road rules and signage. 2. Assessing the immediate environment for potential hazards and obstructions. 3. Identifying legal and safe stopping or parking locations before the need arises, if possible. 4. If an unexpected situation arises, pausing to consider the safest and most compliant course of action, even if it involves a slight delay or inconvenience. 5. Recognizing that adherence to the law is paramount, and that personal urgency does not supersede public safety obligations. Question 5. Strategic planning requires a driver in Tasmania to consider potential vehicle issues. If a driver notices that one of their brake lights has stopped working while driving on a Tasmanian road, what is the most responsible and legally compliant course of action to take? Option A. Immediately pull over to a safe location and arrange for the brake light to be repaired or inspected by a qualified mechanic before continuing the journey. Option B. Ignore the faulty brake light and hope it is not noticed by police or other drivers. Option C. Attempt to fix the brake light oneself using readily available materials before continuing to drive. Option D. Continue driving to the nearest destination, such as home or a mechanic, as long as it is only a short distance and traffic is light. The correct answer is A. Immediately pull over to a safe location and arrange for the brake light to be repaired or inspected by a qualified mechanic before continuing the journey. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to balance immediate personal needs with the overarching legal and safety obligations of operating a vehicle on Tasmanian roads. The temptation to prioritize convenience or a perceived minor inconvenience over strict adherence to traffic laws, especially concerning vehicle condition, can lead to significant risks for the driver and others. Careful judgment is required to assess the severity of a vehicle defect and determine the appropriate course of action in accordance with Tasmanian road rules. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves immediately ceasing operation of the vehicle and arranging for it to be repaired or inspected by a qualified mechanic. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the safety hazard posed by a malfunctioning brake light, which is a critical safety feature. The Road Rules Tasmania, specifically those pertaining to vehicle safety and maintenance, mandate that vehicles must be in a safe operating condition at all times. A non-functioning brake light significantly impairs a driver's ability to signal intentions and makes the vehicle less visible to other road users, increasing the risk of a collision. By stopping and arranging for repair, the driver prioritizes public safety and complies with their legal responsibility to maintain their vehicle in a roadworthy condition. Incorrect approaches analysis. Continuing to drive with a known faulty brake light, even for a short distance, is a regulatory failure. This violates the principle of maintaining a vehicle in a safe condition, as stipulated by Tasmanian road safety legislation. Creates an immediate hazard by reducing the driver's ability to communicate braking intentions and increases the risk of being struck from behind, especially in low light conditions or poor weather. Attempting to fix the brake light oneself without proper knowledge or tools, and then continuing to drive, is also an unacceptable approach. While the intention might be to resolve the issue, risks exacerbating the problem or creating new safety concerns if the repair is not done correctly. It bypasses the requirement for a roadworthy vehicle and potentially leads to further defects. Ignoring the faulty brake light altogether and hoping it is not noticed by authorities or other drivers is a severe ethical and regulatory failure. This demonstrates a disregard for the law and the safety of other road users, placing personal convenience above public well-being. It is a direct contravention of the duty of care expected of all drivers in Tasmania. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and legal compliance. This involves 1. Recognizing a potential safety issue, e.g., a warning light, unusual vehicle noise, or a visible defect like a brake light. 2. Immediately assessing the severity of the issue in the context of road safety regulations. 3. If the issue compromises safety or violates regulations, ceasing operation of the vehicle or taking immediate steps to rectify the problem in a safe and compliant manner. 4. Consulting relevant regulations and seeking professional assistance when necessary. Question 6. Quality control measures reveal that a driver in Tasmania is approaching a section of road where a car is parked on the left side, partially obstructing the lane. The driver can see oncoming traffic approaching from a distance. What is the most appropriate action for the driver to take? Option A. Immediately cross the center line to overtake the parked car, as long as there is enough space to squeeze past. Option B. Stop the vehicle completely and wait for the parked car to move or for the oncoming traffic to pass without further assessment. Option C. Maintain the current speed and attempt to pass the parked car, assuming oncoming traffic will yield. Option D. Slow down significantly, assess the situation for oncoming traffic and pedestrians, and proceed only when it is safe to do so, yielding to any oncoming vehicles. The correct answer is D. Slow down significantly, assess the situation for oncoming traffic and pedestrians, and proceed only when it is safe to do so, yielding to any oncoming vehicles. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to interpret and apply road rules in a dynamic and potentially hazardous situation involving multiple road users. The driver must prioritize safety and adhere to the specific regulations of Tasmania, which govern right-of-way and safe passing. Misinterpreting the situation or failing to act in accordance with the road rules Tasmania could lead to a collision, endanger other road users, and result in penalties. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves the driver of the vehicle approaching the parked car to slow down significantly, assess the situation for oncoming traffic and any pedestrians, and only proceed when it is safe to do so, yielding to any oncoming vehicles. This aligns with the fundamental principles of safe driving and the specific requirements of the road rules Tasmania, particularly those concerning approaching stationary vehicles and ensuring clear passage. The law mandates that drivers must always drive with due care and attention and avoid actions that could endanger themselves or others. Specifically, Rule 134 of the Road Rules Tasmania requires drivers to give way to any vehicle approaching from the opposite direction on the same road or on a road entering the road the driver is on. When a vehicle is parked and obstructing the lane, the driver must ensure they can pass safely without forcing oncoming traffic to take evasive action. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding at the normal speed limit without slowing down is incorrect because it fails to account for the potential hazard of the parked vehicle and the possibility of oncoming traffic. This demonstrates a lack of due care and attention, violating general road safety principles and potentially the specific duty to avoid collisions. Attempting to overtake the parked car by crossing the center line into the path of oncoming traffic without confirming it is clear is incorrect. This directly contravenes the obligation to give way to oncoming vehicles and creates an immediate and severe risk of a head-on collision, a clear breach of road safety laws in Tasmania. Stopping abruptly and waiting indefinitely without assessing if a safe passage is possible is also not the best approach. While caution is necessary, an indefinite stop can impede traffic flow unnecessarily and may not be the safest or most efficient response if a brief, safe observation period reveals a clear opportunity to proceed. The driver has a responsibility to proceed when safe, not to create unnecessary obstructions. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a proactive and defensive driving mindset. This involves constantly scanning the road ahead, anticipating potential hazards, and being prepared to adjust speed and position accordingly. When encountering an obstruction like a parked car, the decision-making process should be: 1. Reduce speed to gain more time for observation. 2. Assess the immediate environment. Check for oncoming traffic, pedestrians, cyclists, and the condition of the road surface. 3. Determine the safest course of action based on the assessment and the Tasmanian road rules, prioritizing yielding to others when necessary. 4. Execute the maneuver only when it is unequivocally safe to do so. Question 7. Strategic planning requires a driver in Tasmania to anticipate potential hazards. If you are driving on a road in Tasmania and encounter a section where the road markings are faded, unclear, or appear to have been recently altered without clear signage indicating the new pattern, what is the most responsible course of action to ensure compliance with Tasmanian road rules and maintain road safety? Option A. Proceed at your normal speed, making a personal interpretation of what the road markings are intended to convey based on your experience. Option B. Continue driving at your normal speed while attempting to visually decipher the markings, hoping to understand them before reaching a critical point. Option C. Immediately cease driving or reduce speed significantly to assess the situation, and if clarity cannot be obtained safely, stop the vehicle and seek guidance or wait for conditions to become clear before proceeding. Option D. Assume the unclear markings are no longer in effect and continue driving, as if the road were unmarked. Correct answer is C. Immediately cease driving or reduce speed significantly to assess the situation, and if clarity cannot be obtained safely, stop the vehicle and seek guidance or wait for conditions to become clear before proceeding. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to balance immediate personal needs with the overarching legal and safety obligations of operating a vehicle in Tasmania. The temptation to prioritize convenience over compliance is significant, and a failure to do so can have serious consequences, including legal penalties and potential harm to oneself or others. Careful judgment is required to assess the situation and make a decision that upholds the law and promotes road safety. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves immediately ceasing operation of the vehicle and seeking appropriate assistance, or making arrangements to comply with the law before continuing the journey. This approach directly addresses the identified issue, unclear road markings, by acknowledging the ambiguity and prioritizing safety and legal adherence. In Tasmania, the Road Rules Tasmania mandate that drivers must obey all traffic signs and road markings. Where markings are unclear or absent, drivers have a heightened responsibility to proceed with extreme caution, and if necessary, stop and seek clarification, or make a safe decision based on general road rules and prevailing conditions. This proactive stance ensures compliance and minimizes risk. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to proceed based on a personal interpretation of what the markings might mean, even if uncertain. This is a direct violation of the principle of obeying traffic control devices. The Road Rules Tasmania do not permit drivers to self-interpret ambiguous signs or markings. Rather, they require drivers to adhere to what is clearly indicated or to exercise extreme caution and potentially stop if the indication is not clear. This approach risks misinterpreting a critical instruction, leading to a traffic offense or an accident. Another incorrect approach is to assume the markings are irrelevant or have been superseded by other conditions. This disregards the legal authority of road markings as traffic control devices. The Road Rules Tasmania are explicit about the requirement to obey all signs and markings. Assuming irrelevance without a clear indication from official sources, like temporary signage or police direction, is a breach of these rules and demonstrates a lack of due diligence. Finally, an incorrect approach is to continue driving at normal speed while trying to decipher the markings. This fails to acknowledge the potential danger posed by an unclear instruction. The principle of safe driving, which underpins all road rules, dictates that drivers must adjust their speed and awareness to suit the condition. Proceeding at normal speed in a situation of uncertainty significantly increases the risk of error and collision. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and legal compliance. This involves 1. Recognizing the situation, identifying any ambiguity or potential hazard. 2. Consulting the rules, recalling relevant road rules and regulations. 3. Assessing risk, evaluating the potential consequences of different actions. 4. Taking appropriate action, choosing the safest and most legally compliant course of action, which may include stopping, seeking clarification, or proceeding with extreme caution. In this case, the most prudent action is to stop or significantly reduce speed and ensure clarity before proceeding. Question 8. Strategic planning requires a driver in Tasmania to consider various factors before continuing their journey. If a driver notices that one of their vehicle's tail lights has stopped working shortly after commencing a trip, what is the most responsible course of action to ensure compliance with Tasmanian road safety regulations? Option A. Continue driving to the nearest mechanic, assuming the issue is minor and will not significantly impact visibility or safety. Option B. Immediately pull over to a safe location and arrange for the tail light to be repaired or temporarily fixed to meet legal requirements before continuing the journey. Option C. Ignore the faulty tail light, as long as the other lights are functioning and it is not dark. Option D. Attempt a temporary fix using readily available materials, such as tape, to make the light visible until a proper repair can be made. The correct answer is B. Immediately pull over to a safe location and arrange for the tail light to be repaired or temporarily fixed to meet legal requirements before continuing the journey. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to balance immediate personal needs with the overarching legal and safety obligations of operating a vehicle in Tasmania. The temptation to prioritize convenience or a perceived minor inconvenience over strict adherence to traffic laws, especially concerning the condition of the vehicle, presents a significant ethical and legal dilemma. Careful judgment is required to ensure public safety and compliance with the Tasmanian road rules. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves immediately addressing the issue with the vehicle's lighting system before continuing the journey. This approach aligns with the fundamental principle of ensuring a vehicle is in a safe and legal operating condition at all times, as mandated by the Tasmanian road rules. Specifically, Rule 213 of the Tasmanian road rules requires that a vehicle must be fitted with and use lights that comply with the requirements of the Australian road rules. Operating a vehicle with faulty lights poses a direct safety risk to the driver and other road users, particularly in low-light conditions, and is a clear breach of traffic law. Prioritizing the repair or temporary fix of the faulty light demonstrates a commitment to safety and legal compliance, which are paramount for any licensed driver. Incorrect approaches analysis. Continuing the journey without addressing the faulty light, even if it is a minor issue and the driver intends to get it fixed soon, is professionally unacceptable. This approach disregards the explicit legal requirement to have functioning lights and creates an immediate safety hazard. It prioritizes personal convenience over the safety of others and the law. Attempting to use a makeshift or non-compliant temporary solution that does not meet the standards of the Australian road rules, even with the intention of reaching a repair shop, is also professionally unacceptable. Such a solution may not provide adequate illumination or visibility, and could still be considered a breach of the road rules, potentially leading to a penalty, and more importantly, compromising safety. Ignoring the issue entirely and hoping not to be detected is a serious ethical and legal failure. This demonstrates a disregard for the law and a lack of responsibility towards public safety. It undermines the integrity of the licensing system and the trust placed in drivers to operate vehicles safely and legally. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a proactive and safety-first decision-making framework. When a potential issue with a vehicle's roadworthiness is identified, the immediate priority should be to assess the severity of the issue against the relevant Tasmanian road rules and Australian road rules. If the issue compromises safety or legal compliance, the vehicle should not be operated until the problem is rectified. This involves pulling over safely, seeking immediate assistance, or arranging for repairs before continuing the journey. This systematic approach ensures that personal needs never override legal obligations and the safety of the community. Question 9. Strategic planning requires a driver in Tasmania to consider various scenarios when encountering a vehicle defect. If a driver notices that one of their brake lights is not functioning while driving on a Tasmanian road, what is the most responsible and legally compliant course of action to take? Option A. Continue driving, but be extra cautious and mindful of other drivers, with the intention of getting the brake light fixed at the earliest possible opportunity. Option B. Ignore the faulty brake light and continue driving as normal, assuming it is a minor issue that does not significantly impact road safety. Option C. Immediately pull over to a safe location and arrange for the brake light to be repaired or inspected by a qualified mechanic before continuing the journey. Option D. Drive directly to the nearest mechanic to have the brake light repaired without further consideration of the immediate safety implications. The correct answer is C. Immediately pull over to a safe location and arrange for the brake light to be repaired or inspected by a qualified mechanic before continuing the journey. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to balance immediate personal needs with the overarching legal and safety obligations of operating a vehicle on Tasmanian roads. The temptation to prioritize convenience or a perceived minor inconvenience over strict adherence to traffic laws, especially concerning vehicle condition, can lead to significant risks for the driver and others. Careful judgment is required to assess the severity of a vehicle defect and determine the appropriate course of action that upholds safety and legal compliance. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves immediately ceasing operation of the vehicle and arranging for its repair or inspection by a qualified mechanic. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the safety hazard posed by a malfunctioning brake light. The Road Rules Tasmania and the Tasmanian Road Safety Strategy emphasize the importance of maintaining vehicles in a safe and roadworthy condition. Operating a vehicle with a faulty brake light significantly impairs the ability of other road users to anticipate the driver's actions, increasing the risk of rear-end collisions. By stopping and rectifying the issue, the driver demonstrates a commitment to personal responsibility and public safety, aligning with the fundamental principles of safe driving and legal compliance in Tasmania. Incorrect approach is analysis, continuing to drive with the intention of fixing it later while being mindful of the faulty brake light is professionally unacceptable. This approach disregards the immediate safety risk. The brake light is a critical safety feature designed to communicate braking intentions to following vehicles. Even with caution, the reduced visibility of the driver's actions significantly elevates the probability of an accident. This action violates the spirit and letter of Tasmanian road safety regulations that mandate vehicles be maintained in a roadworthy condition at all times. Driving to the nearest mechanic without first assessing the severity of the brake light issue or taking any precautionary measures is also professionally unacceptable. While the intention might be to resolve the problem quickly, it bypasses the crucial step of ensuring immediate safety. If the brake light failure is indicative of a more serious electrical or braking system issue, continuing to drive could exacerbate the problem or lead to a sudden loss of braking capability, creating an extremely dangerous situation on Tasmanian roads. Ignoring the faulty brake light and continuing to drive as normal is the most professionally unacceptable approach. This demonstrates a blatant disregard for safety and legal obligations. It places other road users at extreme risk and constitutes a serious breach of traffic law in Tasmania, potentially leading to significant penalties and contributing to a dangerous driving environment. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and legal compliance above all else. When a potential vehicle defect is identified, the first step is to assess its impact on roadworthiness and safety. If the defect compromises safety, e.g., faulty lights, brakes, steering, the immediate and correct action is to cease driving and arrange for repairs. This involves pulling over safely, if possible, and contacting appropriate assistance. The driver should then consult relevant Tasmanian road rules and vehicle standards to understand their obligations and the potential consequences of non-compliance. This proactive and responsible approach ensures the safety of oneself and others on the road. Question 10. The efficiency study reveals that Tasmanian Logistics Company is experiencing high repair costs for its fleet of delivery vans, averaging $850 per van per month. The company is considering two alternative maintenance strategies to reduce these costs over the next fiscal year, 12 months, for its fleet of 50 vans. Strategy A involves increasing preventative maintenance by 20% over current levels, which is estimated to reduce average monthly repair costs per van by 15%. The estimated cost of this increased preventative maintenance is an additional $150 per van per month. Strategy B involves deferring non-critical maintenance for 6 months, aiming to reduce preventative maintenance costs by 30% during that period, with an anticipated increase in repair costs by 25% during the same 6 months, followed by a return to current levels for the remaining 6 months. Calculate the total projected cost savings or additional expenditure for each strategy over the 12-month period for the entire fleet, and determine which strategy offers the greatest financial benefit while considering the regulatory imperative for roadworthiness. Option A. Strategy B projects a net expenditure of $183,600 over 12 months for the fleet. Option B. Strategy A projects a net saving of $306,000 over 12 months for the fleet. Option C. Strategy B projects a net saving of $367,200 over 12 months for the fleet. Option D. Strategy A projects a net saving of $153,000 over 12 months for the fleet. The correct answer is B. Strategy A projects a net saving of $306,000 over 12 months for the fleet. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a common challenge in fleet management, balancing operational costs with safety compliance. In Tasmania, the Road Transport General Act 1995 and associated regulations, particularly those pertaining to vehicle standards and roadworthiness, place a significant onus on operators to ensure their vehicles are safe and compliant. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of regulatory requirements, financial implications, and the ethical responsibility to public safety. A fleet manager must not only understand the mechanics of vehicle maintenance, but also the legal framework governing it. The best approach involves a proactive and data-driven strategy that prioritizes safety and compliance through rigorous preventative maintenance, informed by actual operational data. This includes calculating the cost-effectiveness of different maintenance schedules and replacement cycles based on real-world performance and repair data. By analyzing the total cost of ownership, including repair costs, downtime, and potential fines for noncompliance, a fleet manager can justify investments in preventative measures that ultimately reduce overall expenditure and enhance safety. This aligns with the regulatory expectation that operators take all reasonable steps to ensure their vehicles are roadworthy, thereby mitigating risks and fulfilling their legal obligations under Tasmanian law. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on minimizing immediate repair costs by deferring maintenance or opting for the cheapest available parts. This strategy, while appearing cost-effective in the short term, directly contravenes the spirit and letter of Tasmanian road transport legislation, which mandates that vehicles must be maintained in a safe and roadworthy condition at all times. Such a practice significantly increases the risk of breakdowns, accidents, and subsequent fines or prosecution, ultimately leading to higher long-term costs and a breach of professional duty. Another incorrect approach is to base maintenance decisions solely on manufacturer recommendations, without considering the specific operating conditions and actual wear and tear experienced by the vehicles in Tasmania's diverse climate and road conditions. While manufacturer guidelines are a valuable starting point, they may not fully account for the unique stresses placed on vehicles in a particular operational environment. Failing to adapt maintenance schedules based on empirical data from the fleet's performance can lead to either over-maintenance, unnecessary expense, or under-maintenance, increased risk of failure, both of which are professionally suboptimal and potentially non-compliant. The professional reasoning process for such a situation should involve a systematic evaluation of all relevant factors. This includes understanding the specific requirements of the Tasmanian Road Transport General Act 1995 and related regulations, gathering and analyzing comprehensive data on vehicle performance, repair history, and operational costs, calculating the total cost of ownership for different maintenance and replacement strategies, and prioritizing safety and compliance in all decision-making. A robust risk assessment framework should also be employed to identify potential hazards and implement mitigation strategies. Question 11. Strategic planning requires a driver in Tasmania to consider various factors when navigating the road network. If a driver is approaching a busy intersection during peak hour and perceives a slight delay in their schedule, what is the most responsible and legally compliant course of action according to Tasmanian road rules? Option A. Make an abrupt lane change to try and bypass slower traffic ahead, even if it requires a quick maneuver without full observation. Option B. Proceed with caution, slightly exceeding the speed limit to make up for lost time while being mindful of other vehicles. Option C. Stop completely at the intersection regardless of traffic signals to ensure absolute certainty of no oncoming vehicles, even if it causes significant disruption. Option D. Adhere strictly to all posted speed limits, traffic signals, and give-way rules, ensuring the intersection is clear and safe before proceeding, even if it means a slight delay. Correct answer is B. Proceed with caution, slightly exceeding the speed limit to make up for lost time while being mindful of other vehicles. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for efficient traffic flow with the paramount importance of road safety and adherence to Tasmanian road rules. Drivers' perception of urgency or convenience must not override their legal and ethical obligations to operate a vehicle safely and responsibly. The potential consequences of a lapse in judgment, such as an accident, are severe, impacting not only the driver, but also other road users, and potentially leading to legal repercussions. Careful judgment is required to assess situations accurately and make decisions that prioritize safety and compliance. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves a comprehensive understanding and strict adherence to the Tasmanian road rules. This means recognizing that the rules are designed for the safety of all road users and are legally binding. When approaching a situation where a driver might be tempted to deviate from the rules for perceived efficiency, the correct approach is to prioritize safety and compliance. This involves slowing down, observing all traffic signals and signs, yielding to other vehicles and pedestrians as required, and only proceeding when it is safe and legal to do so. Specifically, in Tasmania, drivers must always obey posted speed limits, traffic signals, and give way rules. The Road Safety, Traffic and Regulators Act 2019 TAS and associated regulations provide the framework for safe driving. Ethical considerations also dictate that a driver has a duty of care to others on the road, which is fulfilled by following these rules. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to assume that a slight deviation from the speed limit is acceptable if traffic is light, believing it will improve travel time. This is a regulatory failure as it directly contravenes the Tasmanian road rules, which mandate adherence to posted speed limits at all times. It also represents an ethical failure, as it disregards the duty of care owed to other road users and the potential risks associated with exceeding safe speeds. Another incorrect approach is to proceed through an intersection without ensuring it is completely clear, especially if the driver believes they have a right-of-way or is experiencing a sense of urgency. This is a critical regulatory failure, violating fundamental give-way rules and potentially leading to a collision. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for the safety of other drivers and pedestrians. A third incorrect approach is to make abrupt lane changes without adequate signaling or checking blind spots, even if the driver believes they are not impeding other traffic. This is a regulatory failure under the Tasmanian road rules concerning lane usage and signaling. It is also an ethical failure, as it creates unpredictable and potentially dangerous situations for other road users. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and regulatory compliance above all else. This involves a proactive approach to understanding and internalizing the Tasmanian road rules. When faced with a driving situation, the professional should first assess the immediate environment for potential hazards and then consider the applicable rules. If there is any doubt about the legality or safety of a maneuver, the default action should be to err on the side of caution, which typically means slowing down, stopping if necessary, and ensuring full compliance with all regulations. This systematic approach, grounded in both legal requirements and ethical responsibility, ensures safe and responsible operation of a vehicle. Question 12. Stakeholder feedback indicates a driving instructor in Tasmania, TAS, has a student who is performing inconsistently on specific maneuvers required for the TAS driver's license test. The student's guardian has expressed a desire for the student to pass the test as soon as possible. Considering the ethical obligations and regulatory framework for driving instructors in Tasmania, which of the following approaches best addresses this situation? Option A. Increase the frequency of general driving practice sessions to build overall confidence, assuming that consistent exposure will lead to improvement in the specific maneuvers. Option B. Conduct a detailed reassessment of the student's performance on the identified inconsistent maneuvers, provide targeted instruction and practice to address these specific weaknesses, and only book the test when the student demonstrates consistent competency in all required areas. Option C. Proceed with booking the TAS driver's license test as scheduled, with the expectation that the student may gain the necessary experience and improve during the test itself. Option D. Focus instruction primarily on the specific tricks or shortcuts associated with the problematic maneuvers to increase the likelihood of passing the test, rather than on developing broader safe driving habits. The correct answer is B. Conduct a detailed reassessment of the student's performance on the identified inconsistent maneuvers, provide targeted instruction and practice to address these specific weaknesses, and only book the test when the student demonstrates consistent competency in all required areas. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a driving instructor in Tasmania, TAS, who has received feedback about a student's inconsistent performance. The challenge lies in balancing the need to prepare the student for the TAS driver's license test with the ethical obligation to ensure they are genuinely safe and competent, not just capable of passing a specific test. The instructor must navigate potential pressure from the student or their family to pass the test, while adhering to the standards set by the Tasmanian Department of State Growth, which oversees driver licensing. Careful judgment is required to determine if the student's current skill level meets the required safety and competency benchmarks for independent driving on Tasmanian roads. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves a thorough, objective reassessment of the student's driving skills against the official TAS driver's license test criteria, focusing on areas of identified weakness. This means reviewing the specific maneuvers, hazard perception, and general roadcraft that have been flagged as inconsistent. The instructor should then provide targeted, additional instruction and practice in these specific areas. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the feedback, prioritizes the student's safety and competence, and aligns with the ethical duty of a driving instructor to prepare a driver to a standard that meets the requirements of the Tasmanian Licensing Authority. It ensures the student is not just test-ready, but genuinely safe to operate a vehicle independently on TAS roads, fulfilling the instructor's responsibility under the Road Safety, Traffic Act 1987, TAS, and associated regulations concerning driver training and assessment. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to simply increase the frequency of general driving practice without focusing on the specific areas of inconsistency. This fails to address the root cause of the student's difficulties and may lead to wasted time and money for both the instructor and the student, without improving the student's actual competency in the required skills. It also risks the student developing bad habits in those weak areas. Another incorrect approach is to assume the student will naturally improve with more time behind the wheel, and to proceed with booking the test without further targeted intervention. This disregards the feedback and the instructor's professional responsibility to identify and rectify skill deficits. It could result in the student failing the test or, worse, passing without possessing the necessary skills to drive safely, thereby compromising road safety in Tasmania. A further incorrect approach is to modify the instruction to focus solely on the trick elements of the test that the student struggles with, rather than on developing fundamental safe driving behaviors. This prioritizes passing the test over genuine competence and safety, which is ethically unsound and contrary to the purpose of driver licensing in Tasmania. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with objectively evaluating feedback and performance data. This involves comparing observed performance against established standards and regulatory requirements. The next step is to identify specific areas for improvement and develop a targeted intervention plan. Throughout this process, maintaining ethical integrity and prioritizing public safety are paramount. Professionals should always ask, does this approach ensure the individual is genuinely competent and safe, or is it merely a shortcut to meet a superficial requirement? In Tasmania, this means ensuring compliance with the standards set by the Department of State Growth for driver licensing. Question 13. Strategic planning requires a driver in Tasmania to consider various scenarios. If during a journey, a driver notices a significant and unusual noise emanating from the braking system, accompanied by a noticeable reduction in braking effectiveness, what is the most responsible and legally compliant course of action to take? Option A. Immediately pull over to a safe location off the road and arrange for the vehicle to be inspected and repaired by a qualified mechanic, potentially requiring towing. Option B. Attempt to diagnose and fix the braking issue roadside using available tools, hoping to restore full functionality before proceeding. Option C. Ignore the noise and reduced braking effectiveness, attributing it to road conditions, and continue the planned journey. Option D. Continue driving cautiously to the nearest mechanic's workshop, assuming the issue is minor and can be addressed upon arrival. The correct answer is A. Immediately pull over to a safe location off the road and arrange for the vehicle to be inspected and repaired by a qualified mechanic, potentially requiring towing. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to balance immediate personal needs with the overarching legal and safety obligations of operating a vehicle in Tasmania. The temptation to prioritize convenience or a perceived minor inconvenience over strict adherence to traffic laws, especially concerning vehicle condition, can lead to significant risks and legal repercussions. Careful judgment is required to assess the severity of the issue and determine the appropriate course of action that upholds public safety and legal compliance. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves immediately ceasing the journey and arranging for the vehicle to be repaired or towed. This approach is correct because it prioritizes safety and legal compliance above all else. The Tasmanian road rules and the vehicle standards regulations mandate that vehicles must be maintained in a safe operating condition. Driving a vehicle with a known defect, particularly one affecting braking or steering, poses an immediate and unacceptable risk to the driver, passengers, and other road users. By stopping and seeking professional assistance, the driver demonstrates responsibility and adherence to the law, preventing potential accidents and avoiding penalties. Incorrect approach is analysis. Continuing to drive to the nearest mechanic, even if it's a short distance, is professionally unacceptable. This approach disregards the immediate safety hazard posed by the faulty component. It violates the principle of ensuring a vehicle is roadworthy before and during operation, as stipulated by Tasmanian road safety legislation. Potential for the defect to worsen under even minimal stress could lead to a loss of control. Ignoring the issue and continuing the journey as planned is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a severe lack of judgment and disregard for legal obligations and public safety. It implies that personal convenience outweighs the safety of oneself and others, which is a direct contravention of the ethical responsibilities of any road user. Attempting a temporary, uncertified fix on the side of the road without proper tools or expertise is professionally unacceptable. While the intention might be to resolve the issue quickly, such actions can be ineffective, potentially exacerbate the problem, or create new hazards. It bypasses the requirement for certified repairs and fails to guarantee the vehicle's roadworthiness, thus violating safety regulations. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a risk-based decision-making framework. When a potential safety defect is identified, the immediate priority is to mitigate risk. This involves stopping the operation, driving, and assessing the situation. If the defect compromises safety or legality, the only responsible action is to cease operation and seek a proper, certified resolution. This framework emphasizes proactive safety measures and adherence to regulatory requirements, ensuring that personal needs never supersede the collective safety of the community. Question 14. The risk matrix shows a driver in Tasmania is running late for an important appointment and is considering exceeding the posted speed limit on a rural road to make up time. What is the most responsible and legally compliant course of action? Option A. Exceed the posted speed limit slightly, rationalizing that being a few minutes late is worse than a minor speeding infringement. Option B. Assume that exceeding the speed limit on a quiet rural road will not pose a significant risk and will go unnoticed. Option C. Plan the journey with sufficient buffer time to account for potential delays and adhere strictly to the posted speed limits in Tasmania. Option D. Drive at a speed that feels comfortable and safe, disregarding the posted speed limit if it seems too slow for the conditions. The correct answer is C. Plan the journey with sufficient buffer time to account for potential delays and adhere strictly to the posted speed limits in Tasmania. Explanation. The risk matrix shows a potential conflict between a driver's desire to reach their destination quickly and the need to adhere to Tasmanian road rules, particularly speed limits. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the driver to prioritize safety and legal compliance over personal convenience, a common ethical dilemma on the road. The temptation to exceed the speed limit, especially when running late, is significant, but doing so carries substantial risks and legal consequences under Tasmanian law. The best approach involves a proactive assessment of travel time, factoring in potential delays, and adhering strictly to the posted speed limits in Tasmania. This means planning the journey with sufficient buffer time to account for traffic, road conditions, and the legal requirement to drive at or below the speed limit. This approach is correct because it directly aligns with the fundamental principles of road safety and legal compliance mandated by the Tasmanian Road Rules Handbook. The primary objective of these rules is to prevent accidents and ensure the safety of all road users. By planning for adequate travel time and respecting speed limits, the driver demonstrates responsible behavior and upholds their legal obligations. An incorrect approach involves rationalizing the decision to exceed the speed limit because the driver is running late. This fails to acknowledge the inherent dangers of speeding, such as reduced reaction time, increased stopping distances, and the higher severity of accidents. It also directly contravenes Tasmanian road rules, which set specific speed limits for different road types and conditions. Another incorrect approach is to assume that exceeding the speed limit slightly will not be noticed or will not cause harm. This demonstrates a disregard for the law and the safety of others, as even minor infringements can contribute to dangerous situations. Furthermore, it ignores the potential for enforcement by Tasmania police, leading to penalties. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and legal compliance. This involves 1. Understanding the legal requirements, Tasmanian speed limits, and road rules. 2. Assessing the risks associated with non-compliance accidents penalties. 3. Planning realistically for travel, including buffer time. 4. Making conscious choices that uphold safety and legality, even when inconvenient. Question 15. Market research demonstrates that learner drivers in Tasmania, TAS, often express a desire to practice specific maneuvers, such as parallel parking, in varied traffic conditions. As a TAS-accredited driving instructor, you are with a learner who has successfully completed several hours of supervised driving and has a good grasp of basic vehicle control. The learner requests to practice parallel parking on a moderately busy street with moderate traffic flow, stating they feel ready to tackle a more challenging environment. Considering the learner's request and the importance of safe and effective instruction, which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Allow the learner to attempt parallel parking on the moderately busy street with minimal supervision, trusting their self-assessment of readiness. Option B. Refuse to practice parallel parking on the moderately busy street and insist on practicing only in a completely empty car park, regardless of the learner's demonstrated progress. Option C. Immediately agree to the learner's request to practice parallel parking on the moderately busy street, as their expressed readiness should be prioritized. Option D. Assess the learner's current proficiency in parallel parking in a controlled environment, and if deemed ready, proceed with practice on the moderately busy street, ensuring clear communication and supervision. The correct answer is D. Assess the learner's current proficiency in parallel parking in a controlled environment, and, if deemed ready, proceed with practice on the moderately busy street, ensuring clear communication and supervision. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a driving instructor in Tasmania, TAS, because it involves balancing the learner-driver's immediate desire to practice a specific maneuver with the paramount importance of road safety and adherence to the TAS learner-driver logbook requirements. The instructor must exercise sound judgment to ensure the learning experience is both effective and compliant with legal obligation, without compromising the safety of the learner, other road users, or the instructor. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves the driving instructor assessing the learner's current skill level and the suitability of the chosen location for practicing the specific maneuver. If the learner has demonstrated sufficient proficiency in basic vehicle control, and the chosen location is safe and appropriate for the maneuver, e.g., a quiet industrial estate for parallel parking practice, not a busy intersection, then proceeding with the practice is appropriate. This approach aligns with the principles of graduated learning, ensuring that new skills are introduced in a controlled and safe environment, and that the learner-driver logbook requirements are met by documenting supervised driving experience. The instructor's primary duty of care and responsibility under Tasmanian road safety legislation is to ensure the learner is competent and safe before attempting more complex maneuvers or driving in more challenging conditions. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately agreeing to practice the maneuver in a busy intersection, regardless of the learner's skill level or the inherent risks. This fails to uphold the instructor's duty of care and contravenes the principles of safe driving instruction, potentially endangering the learner and other road users. It also bypasses the structured learning process essential for developing safe driving habits and fulfilling the requirements for supervised driving experience. Another incorrect approach is to refuse to practice the maneuver at all, even if the learner has shown readiness and the location is suitable, simply because it is not explicitly listed as a mandatory logbook entry. This approach is overly restrictive and does not foster a comprehensive learning experience. While the logbook is important, the instructor's role is to develop a competent driver, which may involve practicing maneuvers beyond the minimum logbook requirements in appropriate settings. A further incorrect approach is to allow the learner to attempt the maneuver in a busy intersection without adequate supervision or instruction, perhaps due to pressure from the learner. This demonstrates a severe lapse in professional judgment and a disregard for safety regulations. It places the learner and others at significant risk and is a direct violation of the instructor's responsibilities. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety, regulatory compliance, and effective learning. This involves 1. Assessing the learner's current capabilities and readiness for the proposed activity. 2. Evaluating the environment and conditions for suitability and safety. 3. Considering the relevant legal and regulatory requirements, e.g., TAS Learner Driver Logbook. 4. Communicating clearly with the learner about expectations and safety protocols. And 5. Making a judgment call that best serves the learner's development while upholding the highest standards of road safety. Question 16. Strategic planning requires a new driver in Tasmania TAS to consider various approaches when navigating an uncontrolled intersection where they have the right-of-way, but are experiencing uncertainty about the intentions of oncoming traffic. Which approach best ensures compliance with TAS road rules and promotes a safe driving environment? Option A. Proceed cautiously but without absolute certainty that it is safe, relying on other drivers to react appropriately. Option B. Wait for a clear and unambiguous gap in traffic, ensuring that proceeding will not impede or endanger any other road user. Option C. Assume other drivers will yield to you because you are already positioned at the intersection. Option D. Attempt to signal your intentions to other drivers while simultaneously proceeding into the intersection without a clear gap. The correct answer is B. Wait for a clear and unambiguous gap in traffic, ensuring that proceeding will not impede or endanger any other road user. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a new driver in Tasmania, TAS, by requiring them to interpret and apply road rules in a dynamic, potentially hazardous situation. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need to proceed with the overarching responsibility to ensure safety and comply with the law, especially when faced with uncertainty about other road users' intentions. Careful judgment is required to avoid creating a dangerous situation or obstructing traffic unnecessarily. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves prioritizing safety and clear communication with other road users. This means proceeding only when it is absolutely safe to do so, even if it means waiting for a longer period. This approach aligns with the fundamental principles of the Tasmanian road rules, which emphasize defensive driving and the avoidance of collisions. Specifically, Rule 128 of the Tasmanian Road Rules, which deals with giving way at intersections, implicitly requires drivers to ensure they can proceed safely without impeding other traffic or causing a hazard. Waiting for a clear opportunity demonstrates an understanding of the responsibility to yield if unsure and to avoid creating ambiguity for other drivers. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding cautiously but without absolute certainty that it is safe to do so is professionally unacceptable. This approach risks misjudging the speed or intentions of other vehicles, potentially leading to a collision. It fails to meet the standard of ensuring a clear path and safe passage, as mandated by general road safety principles and the spirit of the Tasmanian road rules. Assuming other drivers will yield because you are already at the intersection is also professionally unacceptable. This is a form of assumption-based driving that is inherently dangerous and contrary to the principles of defensive driving. The Tasmanian road rules require drivers to give way when necessary, and assuming others will give way when it is not their obligation is a direct contravention of safe driving practices. Attempting to signal intentions to other drivers while simultaneously proceeding without a clear gap is professionally unacceptable. While signaling is important, it does not absolve a driver of the responsibility to ensure the path is clear and safe before entering the intersection. Signaling alone does not grant right-of-way, and proceeding under such circumstances can create confusion and increase the risk of an accident. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety, legal compliance, and clear communication. When faced with uncertainty at an intersection, the process should involve 1. Assess the situation. Observe all traffic, pedestrians, and road conditions. 2. Identify potential hazards. Consider the speed and trajectory of other vehicles and any ambiguities in their intentions. 3. Prioritize safety. If there is any doubt about the safety of proceeding, wait. 4. Comply with road rules. Ensure all applicable rules regarding giving way are understood and followed. 5. Communicate clearly. Use signals appropriately, but do not rely on them as a substitute for safe passage. Question 17. Strategic planning requires a driving instructor in Tasmania to consider various responses when a learner driver, who is about to undertake their practical driving test, discloses a medical condition that they have not yet had assessed by a doctor. Which of the following actions best upholds the instructor's professional and legal obligations? Option A. Agree to conduct the test, but resolve to be exceptionally vigilant and provide extra guidance during the assessment to compensate for the undisclosed condition. Option B. Recommend that the learner conceal the medical condition from the testing officer and proceed with the test as planned. Option C. Advise the learner that the test cannot proceed until they obtain medical clearance and provide proof to the testing authority. Option D. Encourage the learner to proceed with the test, suggesting they try their best and hope the condition does not impact their performance. The correct answer is C. Advise the learner that the test cannot proceed until they obtain medical clearance and provide proof to the testing authority. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a driving instructor in Tasmania, TAS, who is aware of a learner driver's undisclosed medical condition that could impair their ability to drive safely. The challenge lies in balancing the learner's desire to pass their test with the paramount responsibility of public safety and adherence to TAS road safety regulations. Failure to act appropriately could lead to serious consequences, including accidents, legal repercussions, and damage to the instructor's professional reputation and licensing. Careful judgment is required to navigate the ethical and legal obligations involved. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves immediately advising the learner driver that they cannot proceed with the test until they have obtained the necessary medical clearance from a qualified medical practitioner and provided proof of this clearance to the testing authority. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the safety risk posed by the undisclosed medical condition. The Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulations 2023, Tasmania, and the General Duty of Care expected of driving instructors mandate that individuals are fit to drive. Allowing a potentially unfit driver to undertake a licensing test would contravene these regulations and ethical principles of ensuring road safety for all Tasmanians. This proactive step prevents a potentially dangerous situation and ensures compliance with licensing requirements. Incorrect approach is analysis. Advising the learner to simply try their best and hope the condition doesn't affect their driving performance is professionally unacceptable. This approach disregards the known risk and places public safety in jeopardy, violating the instructor's duty of care and the spirit of TAS road safety legislation. It is an abdication of responsibility. Suggesting the learner conceal the condition from the testing officer and proceed with the test is also professionally unacceptable and unethical. This constitutes facilitating a fraudulent act and actively undermining the integrity of the licensing process, which is designed to ensure only competent and medically fit individuals are licensed to drive on Tasmanian roads. This action could have severe legal consequences for both the learner and the instructor. Proceeding with the test while making a mental note to be extra vigilant during the assessment is insufficient. While vigilance is important, it does not mitigate the inherent risk posed by an undisclosed medical condition that could suddenly impair a driver's abilities. The primary responsibility is to ensure the driver is medically fit before the test commences, not to compensate for a known deficiency during it. This approach fails to address the root cause of the safety concern. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this situation should follow a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and regulatory compliance. This involves 1. Identifying the potential risk and its implications. 2. Consulting relevant regulations and ethical guidelines, in this case, TAS road transport laws and professional conduct standards for driving instructors. 3. Communicating clearly and directly with the learner about the requirements and risks. 4. Taking decisive action to ensure compliance and safety, even if it means delaying or refusing a service. 5. Documenting the interaction and the decision made. Question 18. Strategic planning requires a driver in Tasmania to consider various factors before making a decision on the road. If a driver finds their sunglasses have slipped down their nose, significantly obstructing their vision, and they are currently on a busy road with no immediate designated parking, what is the most appropriate immediate action to take according to Tasmanian road safety principles? Option A. Find the nearest safe and legal place to stop the vehicle completely before attempting to adjust the sunglasses. Option B. Continue driving with the obstructed vision until reaching the destination, as stopping on a busy road is generally prohibited. Option C. Pull over onto the shoulder of the busy road to adjust the sunglasses, assuming it is a temporary measure. Option D. Stop the vehicle immediately in the current traffic lane to adjust the sunglasses, as vision obstruction is a safety hazard. Correct answer is A. Find the nearest safe and legal place to stop the vehicle completely before attempting to adjust the sunglasses. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to balance immediate personal needs with the overarching legal and safety obligations of operating a vehicle in Tasmania. The temptation to prioritize convenience or a perceived minor inconvenience over strict adherence to traffic laws can lead to dangerous situations and legal repercussions. Careful judgment is required to assess the risk associated with any deviation from standard procedure. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves prioritizing the immediate safety and legality of the driving situation. This means ensuring the vehicle is parked legally and safely before attending to any personal needs. In Tasmania, the Road Rules 2009 TAS mandate that drivers must not stop or park in a way that obstructs traffic or poses a danger to other road users. Therefore, finding a designated parking spot or a safe, legal pullover area before addressing the need to adjust a personal item is the correct and responsible course of action. This approach upholds the law and demonstrates a commitment to road safety, which is paramount in the Tasmanian driving context. Incorrect approach is analysis. Stopping immediately in a traffic lane, even briefly, is a direct contravention of the Road Rules 2009 TAS, specifically rules pertaining to stopping in a position that obstructs other drivers or creates a hazard. This action disregards the safety of other road users and the flow of traffic. Pulling over onto the shoulder of a busy road without first assessing its legality or safety is also problematic. While it might seem like a solution, the shoulder may not be designated for stopping, could be unstable, or could still impede emergency vehicles or other traffic. The Road Rules 2009 TAS require drivers to stop in a position that is safe and legal, ignoring the need to adjust the item until reaching the destination, while seemingly compliant with stopping rules, could be a safety risk if the item is significantly distracting or impairing the driver's ability to control the vehicle. However, compared to stopping illegally, this is a lesser failure, but still not ideal if it compromises safe driving. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and legality above all else. This involves a quick risk assessment. Is my current action safe and legal? If the answer is no, the next step is to identify the safest and most legal alternative. In this case, the immediate need is to find a legal and safe place to stop before addressing the personal need. This proactive approach prevents potential violations and ensures the safety of oneself and others on Tasmanian roads. Question 19. The monitoring system demonstrates a driver approaching an intersection in Tasmania with a green traffic light. Simultaneously, a pedestrian is observed stepping onto the edge of the roadway from the footpath, and a vehicle in the adjacent lane is indicating to turn right. What is the most appropriate immediate action for the driver to take to ensure safety and compliance with Tasmanian road rules? Option A. Continue at speed, assuming the pedestrian will not enter the roadway fully. Option B. Proceed through the intersection as the traffic light is green, assuming the pedestrian will stop. Option C. Focus on the turning vehicle and anticipate its movement, adjusting speed accordingly. Option D. Be prepared to stop or take evasive action to avoid the pedestrian, prioritizing their safety above all else. The correct answer is D. Be prepared to stop or take evasive action to avoid the pedestrian, prioritizing their safety above all else. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to interpret and react to a complex road situation involving multiple potential hazards and conflicting signals. The driver must prioritize safety, adhere to traffic laws specific to Tasmania, and make a swift, informed decision under pressure. Misinterpreting the situation or failing to apply the correct Tasmanian road rules could lead to an accident, fines, or demerit points. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves a systematic assessment of the immediate environment, prioritizing the most significant potential hazard and adhering strictly to the Tasmanian road rules. This means recognizing that a pedestrian entering the roadway, even if not fully on it, presents an immediate and paramount risk. The driver must be prepared to stop or take evasive action to avoid striking the pedestrian, irrespective of other traffic signals or movements. This aligns with the fundamental principle of road safety in Tasmania, which places the highest priority on protecting vulnerable road users. The Tasmanian road rules mandate that drivers must give way to pedestrians who are on or entering a road. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to proceed based solely on the green traffic light, assuming other road users will yield. This fails to acknowledge the Tasmanian road rule's emphasis on pedestrian safety and the driver's responsibility to avoid collisions, even when having the right-of-way. Presence of a pedestrian entering the road creates a new, overriding hazard that must be addressed. Another incorrect approach is to focus on the approaching vehicle's turn signal without adequately assessing the pedestrian's movement. While anticipating other vehicles' actions is part of defensive driving, it should not supersede the immediate need to avoid a collision with a pedestrian. This approach prioritizes a secondary concern over a primary safety imperative. A third incorrect approach is to assume the pedestrian will stop or wait. This is a dangerous assumption that relies on predicting another road user's behavior, which is unreliable. The Tasmanian road rules require drivers to act defensively and be prepared for unexpected actions from others, particularly pedestrians. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a hazard perception and risk assessment framework. This involves scanning the environment for potential hazards, identifying the most immediate and severe risks, and applying the relevant Tasmanian road rules to mitigate those risks. In this case, the pedestrian is the most immediate and severe risk. The driver should then consider other factors, such as traffic signals and other vehicles, but only after ensuring the primary hazard is managed. This systematic approach prioritizes safety and legal compliance. Question 20. During the evaluation of a learner driver's ability to navigate a residential street in Tasmania, TAS, with a posted speed limit of 50 km/h, the examiner observes the learner consistently driving at 40 km/h. The learner states they are doing this to be extra safe. Considering the Tasmanian road rules and the objectives of the driver licensing assessment, which of the following approaches best reflects professional judgment and regulatory compliance? Option A. Assess the learner's ability to maintain the posted speed limit of 50 km/h where safe, while observing their overall situational awareness and hazard perception, and provide feedback on appropriate speed management. Option B. Allow the learner to continue driving at 40 km/h for the remainder of the residential street section, as their intention was to be safe, and this speed is below the posted limit. Option C. Immediately fail the learner for not adhering to the posted speed limit, as any deviation below the limit without a clear and present hazard constitutes a failure to comply with the law. Option D. Focus solely on the learner's ability to control the vehicle at 40 km/h, assuming that a slower speed inherently demonstrates superior safety and therefore meets the assessment criteria. The correct answer is A. Assess the learner's ability to maintain the posted speed limit of 50 km/h where safe, while observing their overall situational awareness and hazard perception, and provide feedback on appropriate speed management. Explanation. During the evaluation of a learner driver's ability to navigate a residential street in Tasmania, TAS, with a posted speed limit of 50 km/h, the examiner observes the learner consistently driving at 40 km/h. The learner states they are doing this to be extra safe. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the examiner must balance the learner's perceived safety with the requirement to demonstrate competence in adhering to traffic regulations and maintaining appropriate speed for prevailing conditions, as mandated by the Tasmanian road rules. The learner's action, while well-intentioned, could indicate an inability to assess and react to traffic flow or a misunderstanding of appropriate speed management, which are critical components of safe driving. The best approach involves assessing the learner's ability to maintain the posted speed limit while demonstrating safe driving practices. This includes observing their awareness of other road users, their ability to accelerate appropriately when safe, and their understanding of when a lower speed is genuinely warranted due to specific hazards, e.g., children playing, poor visibility. The examiner should allow the learner to operate at the posted speed limit, provided it is safe to do so, and then assess their judgment in maintaining that speed or adjusting it appropriately. This aligns with the TAS road rules, which require drivers to observe speed limits and drive at a speed that is safe for the conditions. The examiner's role is to determine if the learner can operate a vehicle safely and legally within the established framework, which includes demonstrating control and understanding of speed management. An incorrect approach would be to allow the learner to consistently drive significantly below the posted speed limit without a clear, justifiable reason related to immediate hazards. This fails to assess the learner's ability to comply with the speed limit and can create hazardous situations by impeding traffic flow, potentially leading to frustration or risky overtaking by other drivers. It also does not demonstrate the learner's capacity to drive at speed appropriate for normal conditions. Another incorrect approach is to immediately fail the learner for driving too slowly without further assessment. While driving too slowly can be a hazard, the examiner should first attempt to guide the learner towards the appropriate speed and assess their response. A single instance of driving too slowly, especially if explained as an attempt at safety, might be a learning opportunity rather than an immediate disqualifier, depending on the overall context of the drive and the specific TAS driver licensing assessment criteria. A further incorrect approach is to focus solely on the numerical speed and ignore other safety aspects. The TAS driver testing is a holistic assessment. While speed is important, it must be considered in conjunction with observation, hazard perception, and control of the vehicle. Simply driving at 50 km/h without checking mirrors or being aware of surroundings would also be a failure. The professional decision-making process for such situations involves a thorough understanding of the TAS road rules and the specific assessment criteria for the driver's license. Examiners must remain objective, assess performance against established standards, and provide constructive feedback. They should consider the learner's overall performance, their ability to respond to guidance, and whether the observed behavior indicates a fundamental lack of competence or a minor issue that can be addressed through further practice. The goal is to ensure that only drivers who can operate a vehicle safely and legally on TAS roads are licensed.